I want to give you a save the date. November the 12th, Annunciation Radio will be having its third annual Faithful Warriors Banquet. And the recipient of our Faithful Warrior Award, the one, the only, Peter Range. So again, save that date for the big banquet here in Toledo on Thursday, November the 12th. Right now, it's time for a conversation with the aforementioned Peter Range. It's a little something we call Say Yes to Life. Good morning, Peter. Hey, Peter.
Hey, good morning, Dave, Ron, Pat. Great to be with you this morning. And, sometimes, Ron, I've got uplifting stories. This is not one of those mornings.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I just need our listeners to kind of wake up. I need all of us to realize that we are in a battle for souls in this country and around the world. And I was reminded this morning of a quote from A.W. Tozier, who once said that most Christians believe that we're at a playground, that this world is just a place for us to go play, but really it's a battleground for us to go out and to save souls. And so I need people to kind of listen to these stories. They're kind of disheartening, but they're also a clarion call for us to take this life seriously, that we're needed on the battlefield, especially to fight for a culture of life and a culture that respects and loves and cherishes every single human being. So the first story I'm tracking, 4 things that I was looking at this morning. Number one, it was just released the other day that there was a kind of a secret memo that went out after the 2022 Dobbs decision, which, of course, overturned Roe v. Wade and turned the abortion decision back to the states. There was a secret memo that went out from Planned Parenthood. Brittany Jenkins, the policy director for the Policy of State Leaders Committee, forwarded this Planned Parenthood memo to attorney generals all around the country. And basically what it said was, claim that pro-life crisis pregnancy centers, which we know provide care, food, clothing, shelter to the tune of millions of dollars all around the country, they wanted to make these crisis pregnancy centers kind of denigrate their reputation and say that they're promoting misinformation. So they said, quote, provide information to the public about CPCs, crisis pregnancy centers, and take steps to curb their misleading and deceptive practices. For example, CA, referring to the state of California, CA issued a consumer alert, the Planned Parenthood memo says. So later that month, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison issued a consumer alert about crisis pregnancy centers in his state. And, quote, of course, in that memo, he said pregnant people should have accurate information. In December of 2022, a few months later, New Jersey Attorney General Matthew Platkin also issued a consumer alert, but he went further. He actually issued a subpoena to First Choice, which is a crisis pregnancy center, demanding the names, phone numbers, addresses, and places of employment of all individual contributors. Of course, this went to the U.S. Supreme Court. Supreme Court said you can't do that. That's just targeting these CPCs. But this is kind of the worldview or mindset of some of these folks, that they want to even kind of just push abortion so bad that they want to make crisis pregnancy centers, which are helping women, look bad kind of in the public view. Speaking of looking bad in the public view, the second story I'm kind of tracking, you've heard me talk about him before because he was the Democratic Senate nominee from the state of Texas who claimed that the Annunciation gives right to women to choose abortion, twisting scripture in so many different ways. But there's been more videos now surfacing of Democratic Senate nominee James Talarico referring to women as women with, or people with uteruses, so not even saying women. So he said, actually, after the Dobbs decision, that every one of our neighbors with a uterus has become the property of the state. In another video, Talarico referred to wanting our neighbors with a uterus to be able to control their own body. So he has a trouble saying actual women. Now, why is he doing this? He's used this wording numerous times when discussing biological women, and has added that our trans community needs abortion care too, even though we know biologically men claiming to be women can't get pregnant nor have abortions. But this is the mindset, again, of the battle we are in. These folks are pushing an ideology which is twisting the natural reality, which we all know to be true, that men are men and women are women and men can't get pregnant. Yet these are major candidates for senators of the United States of America. These are major organizations that have a favored public view, including Planned Parenthood, which is trying to downgrade crisis pregnancy centers. But it should come as no surprise, because so much of this is guided and motivated for the love of money, which the scriptures tells us is the root of all evil. So if you haven't checked out the Wolves in White Coats report, which is just published by the Health and Human Services Department of our government, I encourage you to do so. You can find it at hhsinsuranceFraud.org. Again, that's hhsinsuranceFraud.org. But for years, major hospital networks claim that adolescent gender medical procedures were driven solely by compassionate clinical care. We're helping, quote unquote, this minor transition because we want them to survive and live and so on and so forth. But there's an investigation done by the Health and Human Services. Also, our president, the Center for Christian Virtue, Aaron Baer, was an author on the report. But the investigation reveals a far darker reality, that there was an aggressive, for-profit-driven revenue engine in these hospitals, getting these kids to come in, kind of trap them in the transition process so they can make $100,000, $170,000 off of these kids' lives. And what they did was, there's diagnostic codes that a hospital must kind of enter when they're giving a treatment, particularly if that individual coming in is on Medicare or whatever it might be. Well, these kids, they would kind of code that they had an endocrine disorder, which would be covered then by Medicaid. Now, all of that money, though, went to transitioning these kids with cross-sex hormones and giving them surgeries and everything of that nature. So U.S. hospitals and clinics billed out nearly $120 million in gender-related medical treatments to minors since 2019, over thousands of surgeries. And these are some of your major hospitals around the country. Mount Sinai Medical Center in New York, Boston Children's Hospital, Cleveland Clinic here in Ohio. So major medical services performing thousands of surgeries, giving thousands of cross-sex hormones to these kids, and unfortunately profiting off of their life. So just really, really sick stuff that we have to pray against, we have to fight against, and we have to be aware that this is why we take this, gender language very seriously. And we're not going to play into the lies. And, if Johnny claims to be Jill, we're not going to call him Jill, because this is where this stuff ultimately leads.
Yeah.
Last thing, pay attention, and we'll maybe cover this next week, but the British Medical Association just came out encouraging doctors to help patients die by starvation. The end of life is under attack as well. Folks, we are in a battleground. We got to wake up and we got to fight today. This is not a playground anymore. We have to fight for a culture of life.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, that transgender stuff is lifelong. So once you get them involved in those surgeries, they're going to be a part of the healthcare for the rest of their lives.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter.